They thought they were prepared for anything the universe could throw at them. Black holes, space plagues, even sentient radiation clouds, but nothing could prepare the Valtherian warriors for Earth's greatest mystery. Why on this strange backwater planet? Do the males run the military? And then, get this, their greatest warriors are all, wait for it, male. Commander Zilara Vin's announcement was met with a chorus of laughter that echoed through the sleek, chrome-plated briefing room of the Valtherian battle cruiser, Void Seraphim. The assembled warriors, all towering muscular women with skin tones ranging from deep purple to iridescent blue, howled with mirth, some literally pounding their fists on the holographic display tables. "Oh, come on, Commander." Lieutenant Terena managed between guffaws, her crystalline antennae twitching with amusement. "You can't expect us to believe that. Even the Flubbians have more sense than to put males in charge of combat operations." Zilara Vin raised a hand, her four eyes glinting with a mixture of humor and something else. Was it anticipation? "I swear by the great goddess herself, it's true. Our long-range scans and intercepted communications confirm it. The species that calls itself humanity entrusts its defense to creatures with..." She paused for dramatic effect. "And sedin tom tenisto external genitalia." This revelation sent a fresh wave of hilarity through the room. Several warriors fell out of their chairs, clutching their abdomens as they gasped for breath between peals of laughter. But, Sergeant Laraxa, the youngest of the group, wiped tears from her eyes. How do they even move in combat with such appendages flopping about? She made a crude gesture with her hand, sending her comrades into further hysterics. Commander Zilara Vin allowed herself a small smirk before continuing. "Apparently they encase them in protective gear. Can you imagine? Wasting resources on armor for reproductive organs instead of vital combat systems." Oh. Lieutenant Terena raised a hand, barely containing her giggles. Maybe that's why they haven't achieved interstellar travel yet. Too busy inventing new ways to cup their, what did the translation matrix call them? Balls? The room erupted once more, and even the stoic commander couldn't help but join in. As the laughter began to subside, she activated the holographic display showing a rotating image of Earth. "Ladies," Zilara Vin said, her tone becoming more serious, though a hint of amusement still lingered in her voice. "As entertaining as this revelation is, we have a mission. The Galactic Council has tasked us with making first contact with these humans. They may be primitive, but they've shown remarkable resilience in surviving on their frankly inhospitable mudball of a planet." Sergeant Laraxa raised a hand, her expression a mixture of curiosity and lingering mirth. "Commander, forgive me, but why us? Surely a less advanced species like this would be better handled by the diplomatic corps." Zilara Vin's four eyes narrowed slightly. "An excellent question, Sergeant. The Council believes that a show of military strength might be necessary. These humans, despite their anatomical disadvantages, have a history of aggression. They've been fighting amongst themselves for millennia. The Council fears they might react poorly to the revelation that they're not alone in the universe." "So," drawled Lieutenant Terena, idly flexing her impressive biceps, "we're here to give them a little taste of real warrior prowess, eh? Show them what they're up against if they decide to get uppity." The commander nodded, a predatory grin spreading across her face. "Precisely. We'll make contact, demonstrate our superior technology and combat skills, and hopefully convince them to join the galactic community peacefully. And if not..." She let the sentence hang in the air, her implication clear. "Now," Zalara Vin continued, bringing up a new holographic display, this one showing a gridded map of Earth's surface. "Our initial landing zone will be here, in a region they call Texas. Apparently, it's known for its, what was the phrase, Mako culture. Seemed like an appropriate place to start." The warriors leaned in, studying the terrain and population centers with professional interest, their earlier mirth giving way to the focus of seasoned soldiers preparing for a mission. "We'll be touching down in approximately 12 standard hours. I suggest you all get some rest and prepare your combat suits. Remember, we're here to impress, not to start a war, unless they give us reason to, of course." As the briefing concluded and the warriors filed out, excited chatter filled the air. Speculation about what these strange men would look like in person, jokes about their potential combat effectiveness or lack thereof, and boasts about who would collect the most massive male specimen for study, all mingled together. Commander Zalara Vin remained behind, staring at the slowly rotating hologram of Earth. Something about this mission felt different. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but a tiny voice in the back of her mind whispered that they might be in for more than they bargained for. Shaking off the feeling, she straightened her shoulders and marched out of the briefing room. After all, how much trouble could a bunch of weak, floppy genitaliaed males really be? 12 hours later, the Valtherian landing craft touched down in a remote area of the Texas Hill Country, its cloaking technology ensuring that no human eyes witnessed its arrival. As the dust settled, a hatch opened with a pneumatic hiss, and out strode Commander Zalara Vin, resplendent in her ceremonial battle armor. The armor was a masterpiece of Valtherian engineering, form-fitting, yet offering complete protection. It accentuated her already impressive musculature while bristling with an array of advanced weaponry. The helmet currently retracted but deploy in milliseconds, offering full environmental protection and enhanced sensory input. Behind her came Lieutenant Terena and Sergeant Lyraxa, similarly attired but with slight variations denoting their lower ranks. The rest of the squad, 10 warriors in total, fanned out, securing the perimeter with practiced efficiency. "Atmosphere analysis complete, Commander," reported Lyraxa, consulting a holographic readout projected from her gauntlet. "Breathable, if a bit primitive. No immediate biological hazards detected." Zalara Vin nodded, taking a deep breath of the alien air. It smelled of vegetation and, was that animal excrement? Charming. "Very well. Maintain cloaking on the ship, and let's move out. According to our intel, there should be a human settlement approximately 5 clicks north of here." As they began their march, the Valtherians couldn't help but marvel at the alien landscape. The vegetation was so green. Their home world, Valtheris, was mostly deep purples and blues, its plant life having evolved to absorb different wavelengths from its binary star system. "It's almost pretty," mused Terena, running a gauntleted hand over a particularly gnarled tree, in a rustic, underdeveloped sort of way. "Focus, Lieutenant," Zalara Vin chided. Though there was no real bite to her words, she too found herself oddly captivated by the strange beauty of this world. As they crested a hill, they caught their first glimpse of human habitation, a collection of structures, mostly low-slung and constructed of what appeared to be processed vegetation and primitive stone and aggregates sprawled before them. "That's their idea of a settlement?" Lyraxa couldn't keep the disdain from her voice. "Where are the soaring spires, the gravity-defying archways?" "Remember, Sergeant," Zalara Vin cautioned, "they're several millennia behind us technologically. Try to keep your expectations modest. As they approached the outskirts of the town, the sound of some sort of combustion engine caught their attention. A primitive ground vehicle came into view, kicking up dust as it bounced along what passed for a road in these parts. "Quick, activate your personal cloaking fields," Zilara Vin ordered. "Let's observe for a moment before making our presence known." The squad shimmered out of visibility just as the vehicle, some sort of open-topped conveyance, pulled to a stop nearby. The door opened, and out stepped. "By the goddess," breathed Terena, her voice a mixture of shock. And was that appreciation? The human that emerged was undoubtedly male, fitting the biological profiles they'd studied, but the grainy images and clinical descriptions hadn't prepared them for this. He was tall for a human, probably close to 2 meters. His skin was tanned and weathered, speaking of a life lived outdoors. Muscles rippled beneath the thin fabric covering his upper body, while his lower half was encased in some sort of blue material that hugged his form in a way that made several of the Valtherian warriors shift uncomfortably. But it was his face that truly captured their attention. Strong jawline, piercing eyes the color of the sky above, and a dusting of facial hair that should have looked primitive, but somehow didn't. When he smiled at something in the vehicle, several of the warriors felt their hearts skip a beat. "Well," the human drawled, his voice a deep rumble that sent an unexpected shiver down Zilara's spine. "You coming out, darling, or are you just gonna sit there gawking all day?" Another human emerged, this one female. While objectively attractive by human standards, the Valtherian found their gaze drawn inexorably back to the male. "Oh, hush, Jack Carson," the female said, playfully swatting his arm. "Not all of us can hop out of a truck like we're dismounting a horse in some western." The male Jack Carson laughed, a rich, warm sound that seemed to reverberate through the very air. "Ain't my fault you insisted on those fancy shoes, Sarah. Told you they weren't made for ranch life." As the humans continued their banter, moving towards one of the structures, Commander Zilara finally snapped out of her daze. She realized with a mix of horror and fascination that she'd been staring slack-jawed at this alien male for far too long. "Ahem." She cleared her throat, thankful that her warriors couldn't see the deep purple blush that had spread across her cheeks. "Let's regroup. Back to the ship for tactical reassessment." As they retreated, Zilara couldn't shake the feeling that this mission had just become far more complicated than any of them had anticipated. These humans, especially their males, were nothing like what they'd expected, and that realization was both thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Back aboard the cloaked ship, the mood among the Valtherian warriors was chaotic, to say the least. Gone was the mocking laughter and dismissive attitude of just hours ago. In its place was a mix of confusion, excitement, and more than a little trepidation. "Did you see the way he moved?" Lieutenant Terena was saying, her usual cool demeanor nowhere to be seen. "So fluid, graceful even, and those arms. I bet he could give even Lyraxa a run for her money in hand-to-hand combat." Sergeant Lyraxa, usually quick to rise to any challenge, merely nodded, a faraway look in her eyes, and his voice. "By the goddess, I've never heard anything like it. It was like the gravitational pull of a gas giant," supplied another warrior, earning murmurs of agreement from the group. Commander Zilara watched this display with growing alarm. These were her elite troops, hardened veterans of a dozen interstellar conflicts. And here they were, reduced to giggling schoolgirls over a single glimpse of a human male. "Ladies," she barked, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Need I remind you that we are here on a mission of galactic importance?" The warriors straightened, some looking sheepish, others defiant. "With all due respect, Commander," Terena began, a hint of challenge in her tone, "I think we may need to reassess our initial assumptions about these humans." Zalara sighed, rubbing her temples. She couldn't exactly disagree. "You're right, of course, but we can't let our personal reactions cloud our judgment. We still have a job to do." "Maybe," Lyraxa spoke up, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Maybe we've been going about this all wrong. I mean, if that male is any indication of their species' capabilities, perhaps a show of force isn't the best approach." The commander considered this. It went against everything in her training, every instinct honed over years of military service. But then again, nothing about this mission was turning out as expected. "What do you propose, Sergeant?" Lyraxa's antennae twitched nervously. "Well, what if we tried a more diplomatic approach? You know, cultural exchange and all that." The room fell silent as the implications of this suggestion sank in. Then slowly, grins began to spread across the faces of the assembled warriors. "Cultural exchange, eh?" Terena's voice was thick with innuendo. "I could get behind that kind of diplomacy." Mui, Zalara held up a hand, stemming the tide of excited chatter before it could build. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still need a plan. We can't just walk into their settlement and announce ourselves. We need intel, a way to approach them that won't cause panic." "What about their communication networks?" one of the younger warriors suggested. "Our long-range scans picked up primitive but functional data transmission systems. Maybe we could tap into those, learn more about their culture, their customs." The commander nodded slowly. It wasn't a bad idea. "All right. Terena, you and your team work on accessing their information networks, but be subtle about it. We don't want to alert them to our presence just yet. Lyraxa, I want you to lead a small recon team. Observe the settlement, but do not engage. I want to know everything, their daily routines, social structures, mating habits, everything." As the warriors dispersed to their assigned tasks, Zalara couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing control of the situation. This mission was supposed to be straightforward, shock and awe, maybe a little intimidation to keep the primitives in line. Now she wasn't sure what it was becoming. She glanced at the holographic display of Earth, slowly rotating in the ship's command center. Somewhere down there, oblivious to the chaos he'd caused among the galaxy's most feared warrior race, was a human male named Jack Carson. For the first time in her long and distinguished career, Commander Zalara of the Valtherian battle fleet felt uncertain. 3 days later, the mood aboard the Valtherian ship had shifted from excited confusion to something approaching manic obsession. The warriors had thrown themselves into their research with a fervor that would have impressed even the most dedicated Valtherian scientist back home. Lieutenant Terena and her team had managed to tap into something the humans called the Internet, and the wealth of information and misinformation they'd uncovered was staggering. "Commander," Terena burst into the command center, her eyes wide with excitement. "You won't believe what we've discovered about human mating rituals." Zalara, who had been trying and failing to compose a sensible mission report for Valtherian High Command, looked up wearily. "Do I want to know, Lieutenant?" "They have this thing called dating." Terena plowed on, either missing or ignoring her superior's lack of enthusiasm. "It's like a series of ritualized encounters where potential mates assess each other's suitability. And get this, They often involve the consumption of fermented beverages and rhythmic body movements. The commander blinked slowly. You mean they poison themselves and flail about before deciding to reproduce? That seems inefficient. Oh no, it's brilliant. Terena was practically bouncing with excitement. It allows for extended periods of interaction, physical and emotional assessment, and she leaned in conspiratorially. Something called foreplay. Zalara felt her cheeks flush deep purple. I see. And how exactly is this relevant to our mission, Lieutenant? Terena's grin turned sly. Well, Commander, if we're going for a cultural exchange approach, don't you think it's important to understand their customs, especially those related to interpersonal relations? Zalara opened her mouth to reply, then closed it again. She had to admit the lieutenant had a point, even if that point made her feel things she wasn't entirely comfortable with. Before she could formulate a response, Sergeant Laraxa burst into the command center, looking as if she'd just run a marathon. Commander, Lieutenant, you have to see this. She activated her gauntlet's holographic projector, displaying a recording of the human settlement. The image focused on a large open area where a group of human males were engaged in some sort of physical activity. They were moving large animals, horses, Zalara's mind supplied from their research, in intricate patterns, occasionally using long ropes to capture smaller animals. But it was the humans themselves that held everyone's attention. They moved with a grace and strength that belied their seemingly primitive technology. Tools rippled under sun-kissed skin as they effortlessly controlled beasts many times their size. What is this? Zalara managed to ask, her voice embarrassingly breathy. They call it a rodeo, Laraxa explained, her own eyes never leaving the display. It's some sort of skill demonstration showing mastery over beasts. And oh goddess, look at that one. The image zoomed in on a familiar figure, Jack Carson, the human they'd first encountered. He was atop one of the largest animals, which was bucking and twisting in a frenzied attempt to dislodge him, but Jack Carson held on, moving in perfect counterpoint to the beast's wild gyrations. A collective sigh echoed through the command center, and Zalara Vin realized with a start that more of her warriors had filtered in, all staring at the display with unabashed admiration. The strength required to stay mounted on such a creature. One warrior murmured, "Forget the strength." Another countered, "Look at that control, that finesse." Enough. Zalara Vin's voice cracked like a whip, startling her troops out of their reverie. While this is undoubtedly interesting, we cannot lose sight of our mission. We are here to assess the human's potential threat level, and if possible, initiate peaceful contact. We are not here to admire their impressive physical specimens, Kravax supplied helpfully, earning a few poorly concealed snickers from the assembled warriors. Zalara Vin felt a headache building behind her 4 eyes. This mission was spiraling out of control faster than a malfunctioning FTL drive. New plan, she announced, deciding that a change in strategy was desperately needed. We're going to make contact tonight. A chorus of excited murmurs swept through the room. Not like that, Zalara Vin snapped, silencing the chatter. We'll approach their settlement openly, but cautiously. Full armor, weapons powered down, but visible. I want to project the strength and advanced technology, but not overt aggression. Understood? A chorus of, "Yes, Commander," answered her, though she noted that many of her warriors seemed more excited than the situation warranted. Kravax, you said they often initiate social interactions in places where fermented beverages are consumed, correct? The lieutenant nodded eagerly. Yes, Commander. They call them bars or saloons in this region. Then that's where we'll make our approach. Prepare for ground deployment in 3 hours. And for the love of the goddess, try to remember that we're here on official business, not some sort of interspecies mating excursion. As her warriors rushed off to prepare, Zalara Vin allowed herself a moment of weakness, slumping into her command chair. She had a feeling that tonight was going to be interesting, to say the least. Little did she know just how right she was. The Rusty Spur Saloon was having a typically rowdy Saturday night. The rodeo had just wrapped up, and cowboys and cowgirls from all over the county had piled in to celebrate, commiserate, and generally blow off steam after a day of high-stakes competition. Jack Carson McClintock, fresh off his victory in the bull riding competition, was holding court at the bar. His Stetson was tipped back, revealing a face that was equal parts rugged good looks and boyish charm. The crowd of admirers, both male and female, hung on his every word as he recounted his winning ride. And then, just as I thought I was done for, I remembered what my old man always used to say. Jack Carson drawled, his voice carrying easily over the twangy country music blaring from the jukebox. He'd say, "Son, when you're riding a bull, you've got to be the bull." So I just... The saloon doors swung open with a bang, cutting off Jack Carson's story and drawing every eye in the place. The music screeched to a halt, replaced by a stunned silence punctuated only by the sound of dropped glasses and sharply indrawn breaths. Standing in the doorway, backlit by the soft glow of the Texas moon, were 7 of the most striking women anyone in the Rusty Spur had ever laid eyes on. They were tall, impossibly tall, and built like Amazon warriors of myth. Their skin ranged from deep purple to iridescent blue, and each had 4 eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. But it was their outfits that really caught attention. They were clad in what could only be described as high-tech armor, form-fitting yet clearly protective, with strange symbols and pulsing lights adorning various sections. At their hips hung devices that, while unfamiliar, were pretty clearly weapons of some kind. For a long moment, nobody moved. The humans stared at the newcomers in slack-jawed amazement, while the aliens, for what else could they be, surveyed the room with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed excitement. It was Jack Carson who finally broke the silence. Setting his beer down with deliberate slowness, he stood up from his bar stool and took a step towards the alien women. His easy grin never faltered as he tipped his hat in a gesture of greeting. "Well now," he drawled, his voice carrying clearly in the silent saloon. "Y'all must be a long way from home. Can I buy you ladies a drink?" Commander Zalara Vin, standing at the forefront of her squad, felt her heart skip a beat. This was the moment they'd prepared for, the culmination of days of research and planning. And yet, faced with the reality of this human male, Jack Carson, all of her carefully prepared speeches fled from her mind. That is, we," she stammered, cursing internally at her sudden inability to form coherent sentences. "Pull yourself together, Commander." Beside her, Lieutenant Kravax stepped forward, her own grin matching Jack Carson's in its easy charm. "We'd be delighted, wouldn't we, Commander?" Zalara Vin shot her subordinate a glare that promised latrine duty for the next solar cycle, but nodded stiffly. "Yes, thank you, that would be acceptable." As if a spell had been broken, the saloon erupted into a flurry of activity. The bartender, recovering from his shock, began pouring drinks with shaking hands. Patrons scrambled to make room at the bar for the alien visitors, a mixture of awe and burning curiosity evident on their faces. Jack Carson, seemingly unperturbed by the otherworldly nature of his new drinking companions, sauntered back to the bar. "Now then, ladies, what's your poison? We've got just about everything under the sun here, though I reckon our sun might be a bit different from yours." Kravax, who had apparently appointed herself cultural liaison, piped up. "We've studied your internet extensively. I believe a round of tequila shots would be appropriate for this occasion. Wouldn't you agree?" Jack Carson's eyebrows shot up, a mix of surprise and admiration crossing his features. "Well, I'll be damned. You alien gals don't mess around, do you? Tequila shots it is." As the bartender lined up the shots, Zelara Vin felt a moment of panic. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. They were supposed to project strength to, these primitives with their advanced technology. Instead, they were about to engage in the consumption of mind-altering substances with a group of locals who seemed more intrigued than intimidated. But as she looked around at her squad, seeing the barely contained excitement in their eyes, she realized that perhaps this unorthodox approach might yield better results than her original plan. It all wasn't the point to learn about these humans, to assess their potential as allies or threats. "To new friends," Jack Carson proclaimed, raising a shot glass high, "from Earth and beyond." As Zelara Vin raised her own glass, clinking it against Jack Carson's, in a gesture she'd seen in countless human movies, she couldn't help but think that this mission had taken a turn into uncharted territory. And strangest of all, she found herself looking forward to wherever this new course might lead. Little did she know that this night would go down in both human and Valtherian history as the beginning of a beautiful, if highly unconventional, friendship between their two species. But that, as they say, is a story for another time. For now, as the burn of tequila hit her system and the twangy music resumed, Commander Zelara Vin of the fearsome Valtherian battle fleet found herself doing something she hadn't done in years. She laughed, not the mocking laugh of superiority she'd shared with her squad days ago, but a genuine laugh of joy and discovery. The humans, it seemed, had much to teach them after all.